Sir Sachin slammed my sword aside and raised his leg to kick me in my right flank where I was now open. I barely had time to lower my stance and block his leg with my right arm. It was an improvised defense, and the shock of his kick was severe. I grimaced. My right arm. My sword arm tingled with pain. My grip was faltering. Sir Sachin sensed my weakness and brought his sword down without hesitation. Don't underestimate me. We've barely started.
I'm thinking it over as I breathe slow motion. We've been upside down again. So can we turn this round? Or should we let this go? I'm running on instinct for you. So if I wanna run and hide, would you be there for me? If I'm gonna let this slide, can we find something new that we'll never forget? That we'll never forget. If this is real, why don't we feel a little bit more? It's all that I'm asking. It's all that I'm asking for. If this is real, why don't we feel a little bit more? It's all that I'm asking. It's all that I'm asking for. I've been holding on. If this is real, why don't we feel a little bit more? It's all that I'm asking. It's all that I'm asking for. If this is real, why don't we feel a little bit more? It's all that I'm asking. It's all that I'm asking for. If this is real, why don't we feel a little bit more? It's all that I'm asking. It's all that I'm asking for.
One day before the case. Volume. Give me a moment. It's a little loud. The volume. No. Hey guys, I'm back with some more Let's Play Steam Prison. Yeah. I'm trying to find the sound, actually. Struggling a little bit. I mean, it has to be a little bit loud. I can't make up my mind. Anyway, he says, "Good morning, Cyrus. I look forward to facing another day with you." Yeah. You look a little pale. Do you feel alright? Oh, don't worry about it. I didn't get enough sleep. I see. Catching that thief was pretty exhausting. The wedding nonsense was more exhausting to me. I've been hoping that after the wedding dress I'd be able to have some peace again, but they were on my case again this morning! The prospect of dealing with wedding plans every day was depressing, but I couldn't let that affect my work. I had to compartmentalize. Why do they use these big words that I don't even have never heard of until now? I feel so uneducated. I blame my school that I went to. Today's a big day. We'll have to be alert. I gave my cheeks a light slap to wake myself up. Alright, let's do this, Finn. I really wanted to do your route. Yes. Roger. He's so loyal. I'm surprised we were ordered to the barracks. How are they going to send us to the depths? I believe there's an entrance deep within the temple. How do you know that? Didn't it say that on the observation permit we received from Sir Kodor? Did it? I retrieved my envelope and skimmed the contents of the permit. Oh, you're right. Don't laugh! I'm sorry. It's just so rare to see you skimp on preparations. You must have been very tired. I'm worried. is such an important assignment. To miss details like that was incredibly unprofessional. I put the envelope away as I silently gave myself a harsh scolding. Don't worry, I'll be more careful from now on. I don't want to cause problems in foreign territory. But just in case, if you see me nodding off, give me a good shake to wake me up, okay? Got it. I'll wake you up, but I won't shake you. By the way, what did you parents say? Okay, it wasn't me this time. What did your parents say about finally trying on the dress?
Don't ask me that.
Did it go badly? Finn put his hand to his mouth nervously. I don't recall. Okay, guys, I just woke up, and I have to work in the next hour and a half, so the streaming is gonna be raw footage, and it's gonna be hardcore. I don't really want to talk about it, but he came with me yesterday. He's earned the right to hear what happened next. Yeah, they were extremely happy and said they would set the wedding date now. I see. That's good. That must have taken a weight off your shoulders.
No, it added extra weight onto them. My father told me that the real work begins now, and a lot of my time will have to go into preparing for the wedding.
I see. Well, good luck. I'll support you if I can.
Look, you'll eventually have to suffer the same fate.
Oh, yes, that's true, I think. I'll have to work hard myself.
You bet you will, and we'll both make it through. Somehow.
Why don't you just marry each other? I'm totally okay with that.
Sir Kodoa, why are you here? Are you accompanying us?
君たちが来るか確認するため待っていた。おじけづいているのではないかと思ってね。中には下界に対する恐怖のあまり、昇格を辞退する者もいるというのに。
Dang. We're not afraid, right, Finn? Finn nodded almost imperceptibly.
Yes, of course. Not afraid at all. Maybe a little afraid.
Finn.
I'm fine. I'm here, see?
Sir Kotoa watched our exchange and laughed. Then he pointed down the hallway. Station? The same word had appeared on the permit. I'd never seen it used in that sort of context before. Sir Kotoa, what is meant by station? Is it a name? Vehicles?
I have a question. Is it possible to return here from the depths? I should have thought of that. But how?
Sir Kodoa pushed Finn encouragingly down the empty hallway. Ouch! Okay, let's go. A vehicle to go back and forth between our country and the depths. Our country was high up in the sky, far above ground level. Once upon a time, the world had suffered a flood. Our ancestors had been the only ones to anticipate the disaster. They built our country. The flood rolled back long ago, and in its wake, the survivors on the ground lived in a state of anarchy. I can't imagine what's able to send us there and bring us back. I turned the question over and over in my head. He said we'd understand. I'm very curious. Finn, walking beside me, suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. What's wrong?
That person walking towards us. Is that...
Oh.
It's totally not a lolly in a man's suit.
Saint Yune. It was Yune Sakai, our country's greatest saint. He was ageless and immortal. He was a hierophant blessed by God, and everyone referred him. I was no exception to that reference. The moment I saw him, my heart began to flutter. What's His Grace doing here? The police barracks were inside the temple, His Grace's residence, so meeting him was not out of the question. But the temple is extremely large, so meeting him wasn't especially likely either. What are we going to do? Finn, come here! I bowed my head and moved out of the way as His Grace passed. I heard his footsteps.
With steps slower than my own heartbeat, His Grace Yune was about to pass me by. You. I was so startled that I gave a little jolt of surprise. That was a funny reaction. Like a scolded child. I'm very sorry. You can be at ease. Come on, you two. Raise your heads. As you wish. Slowly I raised my head and met His Grace's gaze. I resisted the urge to immediately avert my eyes and began to speak instead. How may we be of assistance? Oh, I need nothing from you. I wanted to thank you for allowing me past. May God bless you. Goodbye. His Grace began to walk away immediately. We watched him as he departed. That was the first time I've seen him up close. Yeah, same for me. As my heartbeat slowly went back to normal, I felt a profound happiness. I didn't just see him, I talked to him. Mother won't believe it when I tell her. After talking to His Grace, today is going to be a great day. I headed towards the station with Finn. What is this place? The hallway went on and on. At the end of it was a door. When we opened it, an incredible sight lay before us. The weather outside the temple was sunny, but the light coming through the stained glass windows was murky, making the room quite dark. The silence was oppressive, and I was uncomfortably conscious of my own breathing. Is this the station? I ventured a few steps inside, looking around. I was expecting to see a guide or employee, but there's nobody. How do we get from here to the depths? Finn, do you have any ideas? I don't, sorry. He said there was a vehicle, but I can't see any horses. Yeah, it doesn't smell of livestock in here. Maybe they're bringing in a carriage? I still have a bit of time. Let's wait on that sofa over there. A red envelope lay on the sofa. Did someone forget this? It has our names on it. Cyrus Testilla and Finn Euclase. I turned the letter over. There was no sender, only the temple seal. Seems like it's meant for us. What a terrible system. What if we'd missed noticing it? I glanced around again. We really were completely alone. I broke the seal. There were 2 letters inside, each folded once. They seemed to be identical. Here, take one. Lift usage instructions. Oh, I see. It's a manual. Looks like it. This document details usage protocol for the lift connecting the depths to our country, hereafter referred to as the heights for brevity. The primary purpose of the lift is prisoner transportation to the depths. Usage by unauthorized personnel is strictly prohibited. The timetable of scheduled transports is given below. Descents to the depths are regular, but ascents to the heights are not. The lift is inactive except when scheduled, save for in the case of emergency. Punctuality is the responsibility of the user. The lift will not delay departure to wait for late arrivals. If we miss the ride back, we're stuck in the depths, huh? Seems that way. We have to make sure we're on time. I'm absolutely not getting stuck down there. Finn gave a nod and put the letter back into the envelope. He stashed the envelope in his pocket. So, where's this promised lift? It's almost time. Whoa! Startled by the vibrations, I jumped up. I didn't have a chance to do anything else before the floor in the center of the room rose up. Whoa, it's magic! What is that? As if by magic, the floor was rising into the air. A tube came into view below it, made of what looked like glass engraved with complex symbols. I've never seen anything like this before. Finn didn't seem to know any more than I did, staring dumbfounded at the bright light. Doesn't look like a weapon, but... Stars, don't get any close. I'm just going to take a look. We have to find out if it's a weapon. I slowly approached the light, keeping my hand on my sword hilt. What is this? Is it glass? I reached out. A little chime rang and the bright object parted sideways where I touched it. A current of air blew out, ruffling my hair. Perhaps this is it. Is it the lift? Finn was thinking along the same lines. This is very strange. There's no horse or ox. How does it move us to the depths then? I don't know. But if this is our ride, we need to get on. This, my friends, is what you call an elevator. Finn's expression was extremely hesitant. He was just as uncertain about the object as I was. I wish they'd at least written lift on it somewhere. There was no discernible writing on it anywhere I could see. We can't just stand around here. You're right. We need to enter. There was still a chance that it was dangerous, though. I had to make a decision. Should I go first, or should Finn? Oh, well, let's go together. We don't have time to think. According to the instructions letters, departure was immediate. We'll investigate it together. Come on, Finn. Okay. I hope nothing goes wrong. I hope that didn't give me love points with Finn. Okay, good. I have to save him for last, unfortunately. The space inside could fit 3 or 4 people comfortably. It was completely empty. There wasn't even any dust. So, what are we supposed to do now? The door! The glass door closed again and the floor began to tremble. As we descended, the light dimmed until it was gone completely. Is this the lift? Being moved by the vibrating mechanism was very unsettling. Finn was in obvious discomfort. He covered his mouth with his hand. Don't throw up! I don't want you throwing up in this tiny space! I know, but... Eventually the vibration stopped and the glass door slid open. Outside we saw... this. I was speechless. Finn murmured something about a room. I don't see any horses. This is just a cramped little space. How is... The ground jolted. I grabbed instantly on Finn's uniform to steady myself. Are you okay? I'm fine. Calm down, Finn. Calm down, lady. I'm the one who needs to calm down. I let go of Finn's uniform and did my best to compose myself. Oh. What's this? When the shaking stopped, a voice spoke to us. Finn and I looked around, but we were the only ones present.
本日は下界行きのリフトをご利用くださり、当リフトには添乗員はおりません。ご着席の上、到着までお待ちください。
Is it over? The room had no windows. I had no idea what the outside looked like. I had my share of apprehensions, but it was too late to turn back now. I guess we should do as the voice said and sit down. Finn sat down in the seat opposite to me. I wonder where we're being taken. The depths, obviously. Finn gave me a startled look, blushed, and looked away. Yes, of course. Sorry. Everything's been so strange that I forgot. I sympathize. The depths are a wasteland, barely fit to be used as a penal colony. I never expected to be sent there without committing a crime. This is an important experience. Let's get as much as we can out of it. Finn nodded in agreement. I couldn't think of anything else to chat about. The rumble of the lift filled the quiet. I wonder if I should be saying something. Sitting in silence with Finn didn't bother me at all, but still, what would be a good topic? Finn cleared his throat, offering a timid attempt at conversation. Cyrus, why did you decide to become a police officer? That's out of the blue. Sorry, I was just thinking that if you hadn't become a police officer, you wouldn't be going down into the depths. You aced the examinations, but that doesn't mean it's an easy job for a woman to thrive in. What made you choose it? It's a long story. Do you still want to hear it? Yes, I like listening to others. Alright, then I'll tell you. As I'm sure you know, the Distillos have been politicians for generations. My grandfather was a politician with a very strong sense of justice. He was often criticized, but the people liked him. He used to help those in need wherever he could. I really admired that. But I'm too impatient and impulsive. I wanted to be like my grandfather, but I just wasn't able to picture myself as a politician. Then something happened when I was 13. I can't find it. It was the day after my 13th birthday. My gift from my mother had been a pendant. It was a family heirloom. I should have put it away for safekeeping. Instead, I'd been so happy that I'd worn it everywhere. I'd been very careful, and yet somehow still managed to lose it. To make matters worse, I had no idea where it might have happened. What should I do? I could never tell my parents I'd lost the pendant within a day. I spent a long, long time searching.
This is where I noticed it was gone. I hope I can find it here.
What are you looking for over there?
I turned around and saw a large man. A police officer.
Taken aback by how his large frame loomed over me, I shook my head.
It doesn't concern you.
Of course it does. It's almost night. You have to go home.
I can't,
Why not?
because I haven't found it yet.
What are you looking for? Where's your home? I'll walk you there.
I'm fine. Goodbye. But now, I still have to look for it.
I knew if my parents saw a police officer escort me home, however, they'd be suspicious. If they found out about the lost pendant, I was sure to be in dire trouble.
Tomorrow. I'll look for it again tomorrow.
When I got home, my mother remarked on my lateness. We ate dinner together. It was all my favorite dishes. But I felt so incredibly sad about losing something so important to the family, and so I didn't enjoy a single mouthful. When we had finished eating, I went to my room and sat down on my bed.
I want it to be tomorrow already.
The next day, I would be able to look for it again. Despite my best efforts to fall asleep, I remained wide awake.
What do I do if I don't find it? They told me it was important to us.
The pain and sadness in my heart seemed to crush me. Later, deciding sleep was impossible, I crept out of the house.
I just need a little longer.
Even if I never found it, I needed to know. I tried as hard as I could.
It's so dark, and
I was alone in town. It was very quiet. I felt like someone was watching me from the shadows. A cold shiver ran up my spine.
I'll be fine. Nobody's there. I'll be fine.
I repeated that like a mantra to myself as I searched. You again?
Yeah.
It was the same police officer from earlier. I froze, paralyzed by the sight of the person I least wanted to see. Your parents must be worried about their child being out at such a late hour. He told me to go home and reached towards me. I told him I was fine and swatted his hand aside with a glare.
They don't know I'm here.
That's no excuse for doing something dangerous.
Please, leave me alone. I can't go home until I find it.
You haven't found what you're searching for? I nodded.
I need to find it.
Otherwise, my parents will be sad. I couldn't say the words. My throat burned. My nose was stinging. I could feel the tears start to well.
I never meant to make them sad.
I hated myself for crying in front of a man I didn't know, but couldn't hold it back. I stared at the ground, wiping at my eyes in the hopes I could hide my sorrow. It seems to be something very important to you. I nodded vigorously, unable to speak. Perhaps it's this.
Does this mine?
I'm glad it's yours. I hope that from the moment I found it, if it was yours, then I didn't need to worry.
Why?
Yeah, because once you had it, you'd go home, right?
I'm very sorry.
Don't worry about it anymore. Where do you live? I'll walk you to the area. It's so deep.
Thank you very much.
If it's important to you, don't lose it again.
I won't.
The house was dark. My parents hadn't realized I was gone.
Mr. Police Officer, are you hungry?
Hungry?
Yeah, my father always tells me to be nice to people who are nice to me. My father bought me chocolate yesterday. I'll give it to you. Please wait here.
Oh, don't worry about it. Always faithful. Serving the people is my job as an officer. I don't need anything.
But,
You don't want them to find out you're gone, right? Go inside.
okay, thank you.
Until that day, I always saw police officers as people who just walked around the city. It really changed my view of them. I wanted to become an officer just like him. That's all. Did that sate your curiosity? Oh yeah, thank you. You're welcome. It's strange. We've been partnered for 2 years, yet I've never told you that story until now. I appreciate you sharing something so precious with me. It's just an old memory, nothing precious. This, on the other hand, is precious. Is that the... Yes. This is the pendant my mother gave me. The Distilla heirloom. I'm always careful to keep from losing it now. You've never told me why you became an officer either. Do you want to...
お待たせしました。お忘れ物のないようご注意ください。
Of course it's gonna be
ありがとう
cockblocked.
ございました。
You heard it. You'll have to tell me another time.
はい
Yes, I will.
喜んで
But it's a rather boring story.
大した話じゃ
I want to hear this boring story, Finn. Probably won't know until you're out, I'm guessing. In that case, I expect epic amounts of drama and lamentation. Oh, fucking, you just had to say that, lady. There was a flight of stairs, which I walked down carefully. I didn't want to stumble. A damp smell permeated the air. These are the depths. Rustled machinery and uneven pillars surrounded us. Through the pillars I could see a plain all gray and brown. Beyond the plain were buildings.
俺が想像
It's
した
completely different from what I expected. You were thinking it would be more savage. Yes, we send our criminals here. I thought it would be more like a prison. Same here. But this is all out in the open, not enclosed. This seems more like uncharted territory than a jail.
それはこの場所だけですよ。
And you are?
ハウンズのリーダー、ザクセン・ブランデンブルクです。ようこそ最果ての極へ。
Hounds.
ええ、新館員から視察者を案内しろという通達。
From the temple. I retrieved my letter and read through it again. Hounds. It doesn't mention that.
当然です。上界の上品な方々は知る必要。我々ハウンズの主な仕事は上界から送られた罪人の取り締まり。メンバーは私を含め全員が上界出身。警察。
I see, but Sir Sachson's presented a tidy exterior and showed no hostility. Still something just... I couldn't pinpoint the cause of my unease, so I shook my head. I understand the nature of your organization. The Hounds, now. Still, we know nothing about this place. We will stay on alert. Anything might happen. Don't drop your guard, Finn.
わかりました
Roger.
勇ましいですね。女性ながら警察官になるだけのことはある。
I may be a woman, huh? The condescension was nothing new for me, but it still made me square my shoulders and straighten my back. I'm Cyrus Distilla, a rank 1 temple police officer. This is Ben, Euclase, same rank. We've come here as part of our promotion examination. Thank you for being our guide.
ええ、では行きましょう。
Sir Sachsen turned on his heels, setting off with quiet steps. Finn and I followed him side by side. We walked towards a large building visible in the distance. I assumed it was our destination. The depths. We're surrounded by a wall here, just like in the heights. Is that...
どうしました？
Behind us in the wall there. Isn't that an exit? I paused, pointing in the direction of the distant wall. It surrounded the city on all sides except for that place that looked like an opening.
あれは視察と関係ありません。
What is it then?
あなたの任務には一切関係のない場所です。この下界にはお嬢様には物珍しいものがたくさんあるでしょうが、任務でいらしたのであればつまらない。
Curiosity killed the cat. Most of what he said was reasonable. I don't like being addressed sarcastically like that, but he's right. Apologies, Sir Sachsen. I let curiosity get the better of me. Finn was giving me an unreadable look, and I apologized to him as well. This is part of my duties. I have to focus on the mission. It took about an hour of walking to reach our destination. It was a large building. It had been built in an Operation architectural style and was the same shade as the dark clouds behind it. There was a large crest I didn't recognize, emblazoned on it, which I assumed belonged to the Hounds. I see. This must be where you keep the criminals. Sir Sachsen laughed audibly.
これは収容施設ではなく、ハウンズの本部です。
Headquarters. Apologies.
お気になさらず、華やかな新館員に勤められている警察官殿と。
Shabby, I didn't...
上界とは勝手が違いますが、この施設は上界の建造物を模しています。我、先ほども申し上げた通り、中へ入る前に罪人の居住地へ案内します。 ついてきて。
あの方
I got a sense that he doesn't think much of us. It's making me uncomfortable.
It's my fault. I insulted him and his comrades. Things are very different here today in the Heights. I need to take more care with how I speak.
ここが罪人の収容場所。通称
Sorry. Yuck.
Sanctuary District.
ここに住む者たちは皆、もともとは上界の人間です。この保護地区を囲む壁の外には、下界の者どもが暮らす集落がありまして。
Walls, like the one we saw from the station.
ええ、奴らは野蛮で大変手を入れています。ですから、こうやって罪人をここに集めて住まわせ、我々ハウンズが保護してやっている。罪深いとはいえど、元
I see. I'm very surprised to see no cells or prisons. I looked at the buildings around me. It was simply a decrepit village. The people weren't chained or shackled. There wasn't any restrictions on their movement.
まるで小さな
It's like a small town. Isn't it dangerous to allow the criminals to roam?
ありませんね。奴らは脅威とは程遠いガラクタです。この剣を持って処分する。ただそれだけのことです。
Sir Satchson put a hand on the hilt of a sword and gave us a wild grin. Dispose, huh? I ignored the cruel choice of words, looking around at the sanctuary district again. These buildings must be where they live. It didn't look like a livable area to me at all. The sky was the color of ash. Everything was damp and everything smelled. The people were emaciated and looked at me with heavy eyes. I know that I couldn't live here. There were no prison cells, but the prisoners were monitored and
引
controlled.
き返したいところですが、ついでですので、この先にある位置へ案内します。
Alright.
Something crashed into me. I turned and saw a boy sitting on the ground. He'd fallen on his rump. Are you alright, boy? I told him it was dangerous to be unaware of his surroundings and held out my hand. Be careful that it doesn't happen again. The boy took my hand and stood up, then he bowed and thanked me again.
I didn't expect a child.
罪人らが作ったガキですよ。汚らわしい。
Sir Satchson drew his sword and sliced the flesh of the boy's arm.
Sir Satchson?
上界の者に危害を加えた罰です。
危害
Injuring? You just bumped into her.
I wasn't wounded. There's no injury. Please sheath your blade. You're bleeding. Are you okay?
何をやっているんです。罪を犯した者は罰する。
This doesn't call for your sword. Besides, he's just a boy.
年齢など関係ありません。罪人は厳しく、等しく。ここではハウンズがルールです。盾つくようなことはなさらないでください。おいクソガキ、二度と走る。
Sir Satchon was their warden. If their law called for this punishment, then he was in the right. I still can't let this pass.
Cyrus!
おや、俺に剣を向
It's my job to protect the weak. I can't overlook this conduct.
け。言ったでしょ。ここではハウンズがルール。
I understand it perfectly well. I serve the people of the Heights. I have no authority here. I'm following my own code of justice. It demands I protect the weak. If you stand in the way of that code, I will use my sword against you.
気を使ってへりくだってやったというのに、この俺に逆らうとはバカな女だ。下級警察官殿に最後の忠告だ。ハウンズの仕事は遊びではない。歯向かう者、俺の靴を舐める覚悟はできてる。
I should ask you the same question. I won't be the one to lose. I gestured for the boy to leave, but didn't look away from Sir Satchson. You go home. Just go. This is a duel. Stand back. Don't interfere no matter what. And don't distract him. Don't do anything that he could use as an excuse.
Alright, good luck.
仲間とおしゃべり、 ここでは俺に歯向かう者はい
You sleazy. How am I going to go about this strategically? We stood at a distance from one another, swords drawn. I could see Sir Sachin's face beyond the tip of my blade. Carrying a sword meant that he had at least some skill with it. He also knew the environment better. I was at a disadvantage. No, I shouldn't think like that. The quickest path to defeat was to doubt myself. I had to believe I could win. First, I have to find out how good he is. I'll go first! Sir Sachin lowered his blade to his chest and parried my attack without flinching. Sparks flew where the swords collided. I brought the sword around and used the momentum for another strike. Sir Sachin slammed my sword aside and raised his leg to kick me in my right flank where I was now open. I barely had time to lower my stance and block his leg with my right arm. It was an improvised defense, and the shock of his kick was severe. I grimaced. My right arm. My sword arm tingled with pain. My grip was faltering. Sir Sachin sensed my weakness and brought his sword down without hesitation. Don't underestimate me. We've barely started. I can slowly feel my arm again. I just need to calm down and react.
警察官殿の規定通りの剣術ほどつまらないものはないな。罪人相手の方があいつらは逃げて逃げて逃げて逃げて逃げるしかない。どこまでも追いかけて捕まえ、そして殺す。ハウンズに逆らう者はハウンズの方で裁かれる。どのような形で殺す自由にお前の相手をするよ。ずっと楽しいぞ。
I didn't draw my sword to amuse you! I flexed my grip on my hilt and glared at Sir Sachin. I pity the hounds for having such a barbaric commander as you. And I pity you for only finding amusement in killing. Our swords clashed again and again. The tip of my sword grazed Sir Sachin's cheek and drew a trickle of blood. Sir Sachin's eyes flashed with rage. Our swords clashed again. We were practically in biting range of one another. He's strong. He's pushing against my sword with all his might. It was difficult to maintain my footing. Do I move back or do I... The pressure suddenly disappeared. I caught a glint in the corner of my left eye. By the time I realized it was a short sword, the edge had already bitten into my left shoulder. The pain was incomparable to the kick I'd taken already. Warm blood ran over my skin. I went down on one knee, startled by the pain. Cyrus! I underestimated you. It's true. Perhaps I'm not skilled enough to beat you either way, but I won't apologize. It would be against my code. Sir Sachin raised his sword. What was that sound? I flinched. I'd never heard of a noise like that before. Nobody answered. None of the residents dared to speak to him when he was in this state.
That's enough sex.
The man Sir Sachin had called Ainz shook his head.
No, but I came here due to the gunshot. I don't recall an order from the Heights that we're to duel the observers, are we? It is my business. We all serve the temple, and if the criminals see us fighting, it undermines our authority.
Sir Sachin reluctantly sheathed his sword, grumbling under his breath.
You too, sheathe your sword.
What should I do? Sir Sachin had put away his weapon, but still glared at me with murderous intent. I decided to trust the man who'd convinced Sir Sachin to back off. Very well. I'm sorry, but who are you?
My name is Ainz Heinrich Hain. I'm the second in command of the Hounds.
Second in command? It makes sense that he convinced Sir Sachin to stop them, but... Sir Sachin and Sir Ainz were of similar height and build, but the impression they make is completely different.
Cyrus, are you okay? We need to treat your wound. Are you wounded? I see a cut on your shoulder and
打撲です
a blow to the other arm. Do you have medical facilities?
Finn,
気にするなとは言わせません
Don't scold me. This is worse than you think. That wound is too serious to leave untreated.
支給されたもので
Finn took a handkerchief and deftly wrapped it around my left arm. He seemed to be correct. My handkerchief immediately turned red, which meant the wound was deeper than I thought.
ハウンズ内の医療室へ
I will escort you to the medical room inside the Hound's headquarters. Socks.
不要だこの程度怪我とはよ
Sir Saxon wiped at the graze on his cheek, turned on his heel, and walked away. When he was gone, Sir Irons gave a sigh and looked at me.
Let's go
我
then.
々も行こう失礼します
Excuse me.
やあ、イネス君。と、そちらは
上階からやって
Observers from the heights.
Irons looked at me expectantly. I realized he didn't know our names. Cyrus Distilla. This is Finn
イエス君
Euclase.
はザクス
Cyrus got into an argument with Saxon, and was injured.
左
There's blunt force trauma on her right arm and an open wound on her left. Please take a look at it.
もちろん。治療は医師としての務めですからね。私はグリッサード・ローゼライト。ハウンズ施設内で上階からのゲストであれば二度と会うことはないでしょうけど。
Pleasure to meet you.
おや、
Yes, both you and Irons are very different from Sir Saxon.
私は無力な医師ですから。
グリッサードさん
Glissade.
おっと、副リーダーの前で失言を。ザクセン・ブランデンブルクはハウンズの頂点。
A hound.
この保護地区ではザクセン君に逆らっては生きていけない。
It seems like it, but Sir Saxon was about to injure a child. I can't excuse an abuse of power like that.
なるほどな
I see. I hope your forthright instincts won't cost you your life
い
one
つか
day.
命取りにな
We can chit-chat later. Can you please tend to Cyrus's wounds now?
傷を見
おっと、失礼しました。さあ、こちらへ。先に
I took off my coat to expose my arm. Glissade made small noises after Hazel. Finn leaned in.
あの
How does the wound look?
鋭く切れているものの問題はないですよ。
See, it wasn't a big deal. I don't like how you keep worrying too much.
自分に
I only do it because you're so indifferent about yourself. What if you needed a transfusion?
Then I would have gotten a transfusion.
しかし
But you can't.
君は輸血を受け付けない体なのですか？医師として興味深い話題ですね。
Yes, but it's really nothing dramatic. I have unusual blood. One transfusion gives me no trouble, but a second one is potentially fatal.
死にいた
Potentially fatal?
Yeah, I'm told that antibodies form after the first transfusion, so more transfusions can cause a rejection. I don't know how it works exactly, and I've never had a transfusion, so I don't know if it's true.
治療が原
The
因
cure could kill,
仕事
eh?
に
That's harsh.
Is it? A wound serious enough to need a transfusion would be mortal danger anyway, wouldn't it? Besides, as I said, I've avoided them so far, so there's no cause for concern. You needn't worry about me. Finn's being fussy. I shrugged and smiled at Finn.
But
パートナーを
it's normal to be worried for your partner.
You do, Sir Hines?
気遣わせた
If you don't want others to worry, then don't get hurt. Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's true. Sir Saxon is strong, but if the fight had gone differently, I think I could have won. If I deal him again, I'll...
そうではない
That's not what I meant.
自分が
I meant that you shouldn't do something so reckless.
Oh, I see.
正義を信じ
Having a strong moral code and wielding your sword in the name of justice is a good thing, but fighting the wrong battles and losing your life leads to nothing.
パートナーを
All you leave behind is a grieving partner.
That's true, I suppose. I'm sorry, Finn.
Cyrus, I'm just glad you understand now.
I'll be a little more careful from now on.
少し
A little? Cyrus, please.
頼みますよ
君は勇ましいお嬢さんなのですね。
Thank you.
破れた服の
I'll arrange to change clothes for you, so that you don't have to wear a damaged uniform.
No, that won't be necessary. My overcoat is in good shape, and one has to look closely to see the damage to the uniform.
分かった
Alright. It's already very late. You should make for the station soon.
Will there be another observation date?
構わない
No. All that's required of you is to see the sanctuary district, then the hounds sign your permit, and the observation's complete. Oh, we were only here for such a short time. Yes. The observation for the rank 2 exam is merely a ritual with socks elsewhere. I'll sign in his place. Your permits.
Thank you. Here. We handed over our permits, which he signed with a pen from one of his uniform's pockets.
That'll be enough. Let's go. I'll walk you there.
Thank you. We'll say thank you for the treatment.
ええ。いつかまたお目にかかりたいものです。
No, thank you.
It was dark by the time we reached the station. I saw the sanctuary district in the distance, and beyond it the settlements of those native to the depths. I looked around, burning a scenery I didn't expect to see again into my memory. Thank you for your help today, Sir Irons.
I'm sorry Socks was being abrasive. I know that this was just a promotion protocol for you, but is there something you can take away from it anyway?
Something I can take away.
Uh-oh. I think this might be an answer to decide what happens. So let's hope I pick... We could say the Heights are a wonderful place.
I learned what a wonderful place the Heights are. The depths and the Heights are so different, it'd be difficult for me to live here.
Wait, I meant the depth. Ah!
I need to be stronger. Words don't mean much in the end. Deeds need to back them up. I want to be strong enough to make sure that my beliefs can preserve.
You're still young. You can become much stronger than you are now. Tread that path carefully and without haste.
I will, thank you.
You should both get a good night's sleep. You have a long day. So I have a decision to make. I will go through each route first time without a walkthrough. And then after I'll use a walkthrough to help me show you guys the bad endings and good endings and all that stuff. I'll try to reach the best ending on my own, but we'll see what my fate leads me to on each route. Hopefully I'm not terrible.
We will, thank you.
We saluted Sir Irons and boarded the lift. He kept an eye on us until the doors were completely closed. We were back inside the lift. Compared to our journey down, I felt much more relaxed. Probably because we're on our way back to the Heights. I let out a sigh of relief, happy that I was returning in one piece. Well, I guess the injury means I'm not entirely in one piece. The cut in my shoulder was no big deal, but the cut in the uniform was a problem. I can lie about my flesh, but the fabric? Mother will be horrified when she finds out. I haven't sewn anything since school. I hope I don't mess it up. Maybe I could ask Finn to do it. He might be better than I am. Hey Finn, can you sew? I'm sorry. You're not good at it? Finn sitting across looked at me quizzically. I was at a loss. Are we misunderstanding each other? So? Oh, you must have misunderstood me after all. Look, my clothes are ripped, right? I showed him my uniform. I'm not good at sewing. I was thinking about asking you if you were decent at it. Oh, I see. I'm reasonably good at sewing, but I think a uniform should be given to a tailor. You should talk to the quartermaster.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's no reason to fix it myself. Thanks, Finn. So, why were you apologizing?
I'm sorry that I didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything?
Yes. When you were fighting Brandenburg, when you were wounded, I didn't do anything. I'm sorry. I hate myself a little right now. I'm so sorry.
Finn, don't bow to me. You did everything right. If we'd both fought, maybe I wouldn't have been hurt. Maybe we would have won. But it wasn't a battle of 2-on-1. It was a duel. Nobody but me and Sir Saxon could fight it. You respected my wishes. That's all I wanted. Hanging back takes courage, too.
Courage? No, that's not what I just didn't do anything. I didn't move at all. Having a sword and not using it is... I mean, what's the point of having it then?
Next time, then. Next time I'm in trouble, you can fight with me, okay?
Okay, I swear I will draw my sword for you when next you need it.
Thanks, Finn. I was happy that Finn was smiling again. Sir Irons is right. I don't want to make my partner sad. I was really happy to have Finn as my partner. I don't want to make him sad or have him worry. I have to change my behavior for that. Stopping in to see management before heading home has made me rather late, hasn't it? I hope my parents aren't too worried. I bid goodnight to Finn and opened the door. I'm home. Mother? I looked at my frazzled mother in surprise and nodded. I'm sorry if you were worried. My work took longer than I thought. My mother, still far from calm, began to pace back and forth. This is odd. They've never been this upset before. I looked curiously at the clock on the wall. It's late, but not midnight. There have been times when I'd been even later, and they'd been exasperated, but they've never been upset before. Mother, is something...
ようやく帰ってきたのか。
Father.
少し前、新会員からお前の結婚取り消しの通知が届いたんだ。仕事先で何
Called off? I thought of my duel with Sir Saxon. That was in the depths. It's unrelated. Trying to think of any way that the duel could be the reason, I shook my head no. Mother, please calm down. Well, the government decided my marriage. Perhaps they had a reason to decide against it. I don't know. I'll go to the temple first thing tomorrow and ask. Please calm
お
down.
前もな。こんなに遅くまで仕事。
My father took pity on me. I don't want to leave my mother alone in this state, but my father will be with her. Good night, Mother, Father. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm dead tired. I placed my sword against the wall and took off my overcoat. Then I began to untie my outer garment. It was a replacement with my own uniform handed in for mending. The buttons were in slightly different places, making my movements clumsy. I was relieved to finally get into my night clothes. Way too much happened today. It had been my first time to the depths. It was a crude world compared to the heights. I thought about the criminals that lived there and their overseers, the hounds. I would have liked to talk to my parents about it, but that wasn't the right time. My marriage, long in the process of planning, had been abruptly called off. I'm not as upset as my mother, but I assume the reason it wasn't hitting me as hard as it was her was my long-standing antipathy about it. That said, we can't really ignore it. My mother was right. Mid-tier nobility like my family had to maintain certain appearances. If word got out that our union with the Fitzgerald family was not to be, the shame might drive my mother to shut herself up in the house. At the very least, we need to find out why. A reason my mother and the world would accept. And that I could too. Tomorrow will be hell again. You got that right. I wriggled down into bed and took a deep breath. After only a few inhales and exhales, I already felt like I was dissolving into the soft linen. My mind was weary. Good night. What was that sound? It was too loud to be a figment of my imagination. I need to go check. The house was very dark at night and as quiet as always. Right now the silence feels ominous. I prayed nothing out of the ordinary would happen as I checked the rooms. I saw light seeping out from under a door into the hallway. The parlor. Is something in there? I opened the door and stepped inside. I looked around the parlor. There was nobody there. Did someone forget to turn off the light? I hadn't found the origin of the loud sound, but I hadn't found anything unusual either. I suppose I must have There was a knife lying at my feet. Why is this here? I picked it up. It was my father's birthday. My mother and I had gone out shopping, and on the way home I broke the news. Of course, Mother. I want to be a police officer. I want to protect the weak. That's true, but I don't like sitting around. I don't think I would be a good politician. So I want to be a police officer.
キルス、厳しい採用試験を合格したとしても昇格にも試験があると聞くわ。あなたの体のことを考えれば。
That's true. It's probably not a good idea given my blood. But despite that, I still want to be a police officer. I don't want my blood to stop me. I'll take precautions to avoid truly serious injury.
私
Please!
は小さな怪我だって。でもあなたは頑固ですもの。
Does that mean I have your blessings?
いいね。子供の幸せを望む数々の苦難があるでしょう。
I will. I'll never do anything to shame the Distilla family name. I'll work hard to become a police officer that you and your father can be proud of. Darkness. At first, there was nothing but a starless black void. Then I began to come back to my senses, starting with smell.
Hey, sounds familiar, since we already read this part.
I'm at home. My vision blurred every time I took a breath. It was hard to focus on anything. There was a stinging pain on the back of my head. But at least I had to get up. I took 2 deep breaths and pushed myself up. Ow! My head! The back of my skull ached. What on earth? But there was a large pool of blood on the floor. And in the middle of it, I saw my mother and my father. Why? Both had gory wounds on their necks and lines of drool running from their mouths. Their wide eyes were sightless and unblinking. I didn't have to check for vital signs to know that they were dead. But why? Who? Why? For what? Questions overwhelmed my thoughts like a noisy crowd. My heart began to race. What? I looked up and saw myself in the mirror. I was clutching a blood-stained knife. I dropped the knife in shock. It made a light cling on the blood-drenched floor. What is this? Who did this? Who? I was the one holding the knife. Therefore, the one who mother and father is me? A knock at the front door made me jump. We had a visitor. My heart felt like it was about to explode. I was having trouble breathing. It was like there was a heavy weight pressed on my chest. Who?
キルス、迎え
Cyrus,
に来ました。
it's me.
That voice.
Hey, good morning. What happened?
Stay calm. Come in and I'll explain.
But,
Just come in, will you?
わかりました。
Roger.
I still don't really have any idea what's going on, but now Finn's here. What should I do next? Was it a mistake to let him inside? I couldn't ignore what had happened. Finn came to walk with me to the temple every day. Not telling him about what would happen to my parents would seem suspicious to anyone.
Where are you hurt? We need to get you to the hospital.
No, this isn't... I started to reach out, trying to calm Finn's confusion. And then I realized my hand was covered in blood. I hid it behind my back instead. Don't worry, I'm fine. No, I'm not fine. But this isn't my blood. I'm not hurt.
では、
But whose?
I couldn't bring myself to say it. I turned to look at the scene on the floor again. When Finn saw the lifeless bodies of my parents, all the color drained from his face.
No. Why did this... That can't be, Cyrus.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I wanted to believe that all this was some kind of sick prank designed to shock me. Mother and father are dead. They won't laugh with me anymore. They won't call my name again.
But this is just so... Why are they... I don't...
Finn paced the floor erratically, his whole manner one of obvious distress. But at least I wasn't alone now. Having someone there with me helped me regain my composure. Who would do this? It's possible that the killer was me.
Was
そ
it?
うなんです。
No, I don't think so. I'd like to hope that it wasn't. I wanted to be sure, but couldn't be. The uncertainty had my stomach in knots. I had no memory of killing them. They were already dead when I woke up. However, I had clearly been the one with the knife.
どういうことです
What
か
happened?
詳しく
Tell me everything.
Yes, right. I closed my eyes, concentrating on the things I knew for certain. I was very tired yesterday, so I went to bed soon after coming home. In the night, a loud sound woke me. I couldn't ignore it and got up to search the house. Nothing was out of the ordinary, except one detail. I saw light seeping out into the dark hallway from one of the rooms. Assuming my parents were inside, I went in. But there was nobody there, and then I lost consciousness. When I came to, it was morning. I was holding this knife. My mother and my father were lying on the floor, dead. Finn hadn't moved a muscle throughout my account, listening in silence. That's all, I added helplessly, even though it seemed obvious. Do you see the knife? I was carrying that. It appears that my parents were stabbed. I'm the most obvious suspect.
違う
No.
Finn's refusal was strong and clear.
違います
No. There's no way you'd kill your parents. Stay still.
Finn pressed his fingertips against the back of my head. Ouch!
あすみません
Sorry, but that hurt, didn't it?
痛みを何者か
Someone knocked you unconscious. Your parents must have been killed
ご両
after
親が
that.
死んだのは間違い
I'm certain that you're innocent.
Finn? I had no memory of attacking my parents, but the facts of the situation made me the most reasonable suspect under ordinary circumstances. Finn's faith in me had dispelled my own doubt about whether I was guilty or not. I can't be. I realized that I was beginning to tear up. I berated myself that this was no time to lose my steadfast self-control. Now isn't the time to cry. I'll have enough time later. I took a deep breath to help me order my thoughts. Who would do this?
俺には分かりま
I don't know, but it's a bad situation. If anybody finds out, they'll suspect you
す
first.
遺体を
Let's hide the corpses.
Hide?
隠蔽する
We have to hide them. If nobody finds out, you can't be punished. This wasn't a choice before. I'm guessing the smart thing to do would be to hide the corpses, but that would probably lead into his route, and I can't do that right now. I really want to, though.
Hiding them. But what good will that do? My father was a politician. If he disappeared, others would quickly notice. I also had no idea where one might hide corpses. And besides, I had no wish to do that to protect myself. Hiding the corpses is like admitting to the crime. I can't, Finn. That doesn't solve anything. I'll tell Sir Kotoa the truth. My words startled Finn. You're right. This is a bad situation for me. But the more I try to hide, the worse it'll become. I want to go to him and tell him the truth. That's the best solution, I think.
そうです
Yes, I think so too.
You can go home if you want. I'll go to Sir Kotoa.
No, I'll accompany you. I don't want to leave you alone.
Finn,
俺たちは
I'm your partner. Let me help you when it counts.
thank you. Thank you for being there for me. Mother and father are dead. They won't come back. But Finn was still there. He said he believed in me. His kindness knocked the wind out of my sails, and the tears it held back before returned almost overwhelming me.
キルス
Cyrus,
No, don't come closer. Finn stepped forward to comfort me, but I stopped him. You shouldn't get any blood on your uniform. I'm strong. I'll be okay. I'll change into my uniform. Please wait outside.
わかりました
Roger,
どんな時
I'm your friend, no matter what happens.
Thank you, Finn.
君が今言ったことは
Is all that really
全部
true?
本当
Oh, sorry, I don't need to voice him.
Yes. I would not joke about the death of my parents.
ああそうだなしかし
No, nobody. My father and my mother were both well liked. As a politician, he no doubt had enemies, though. At the very least, I don't know anybody who bore ill will towards them.
Sir Kurdo, what will happen to Cyrus now?
どうだろうな。ティステラ君の父君は早速捜査を依頼するとしよう。関係者で
Understood.
ユークレス君は
I'll stay with
分
her.
かった。
I know. This was the only possible course of action, but I feel uneasy. No matter what I did, it couldn't change the fact that my parents were dead. Gone from me forever. Everything reminded me of that. But this is for the best. Attempting to hide their deaths would have done nothing except make me the prime suspect. This was the best choice.
礼拝堂へ行きませんか？
To chapel?
ご両親
Yes, I thought you might want to pray for your parents. Not that it'll make any difference, but...
Finn looked away and mumbled a dejected apology. Yes, I'll do that. But if I'm alone right now, I think I'll go insane. Will you come with me, Finn?
Yes, gladly.
喜んで。ここは
I hope I don't accidentally get into a bad route with Finn. This place always so... or a good route with Finn. This place is always so quiet.
Yes, there's nobody here but us. The chapel was part of the temple, a place to offer devotion to the Holy Yun. We approached the icon of our faith and said our prayers, then sat down on one of the pews. Finn sat beside me. The only sound I could hear in the quiet was our breathing. Father, Mother, I'd known that they were mortal and that someday their lives would end. I just didn't expect it to happen so early in my own life. Was there some way I could have saved them? I tried to think of anything I might have done for them, but drew a blank. The stab wounds were deep. Must have been very painful. May they at least rest peacefully in the world beyond. I looked at the ceiling. My breathing was steady.
I expect this will postpone the marriage, won't it?
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. Weddings are held here sometimes. It made me remember your marriage arrangements. You tried on the wedding dress. You would have gotten married here soon. It's a shame.
Well, the marriage was called off yesterday either way.
Called off? But why?
I don't know. My parents told me when I got home. They didn't know why. They were pretty disappointed about it, though. I wasn't as depressed over it as they were. I never wanted the marriage very much in the first place. Perhaps I was even a little relieved that it was cancelled. I was going to come to the temple first thing in the morning to ask why. We talked about it before I went to bed. That was my last conversation with them. I wish I could go back to the past. Losing them this way was horrible. We never even had a proper goodbye. All they'd ever done was support me, and I'd never had the chance to return that favor. And now I never could. What's going to happen to me now, I wonder? I had no idea. I felt like a vast darkness was engulfing me.
You'll be fine.
Finn placed his hand on mine. Finn,
言ったでしょ。
I told you. I will always be your friend, no matter what anyone says. I'll always believe in you, you poor thing! I'll forever be friend-zoned by you.
thanks. I took his hand and laid my head on his shoulder. I'm a little tired. Can I rest here for a minute?
Of course. Sleep if you need to. I ship!
Thank you. Thank you, Finn. I'm glad I found the pendant. They won't find me if I sneak back to my room.
キルス、こんな時間にどこへ？
Mother,
夜の外出は危険だと前に教えたでしょ？
I'm sorry.
無事だったからよかったものの、あなたはティステラ。
そこまでにしなさいミスティ。ヒルスが萎縮してしまってるじゃないか。
あなた。
何か理由があって外へ行ったんだろう。
My father's kind voice calmed me down and I nodded. I lost the pendant Mother gave me. I went to find it. I found it! Look! I turned towards my mother and apologized
何
again.
事もなく戻ってきてよかったよ。
His facial hair tickled my
父さんも
cheeks.
母さんも心配するのは。
I love you too. Both of you.
ああ、父さんもヒルスが大好きだよ。
見つけたぞ。
Finn and I barely had a chance to stand before they had us surrounded. What is this? I didn't understand what was going on. I looked around, confused by the hostile glares being aimed at us. I'm under arrest?
What? No, this must be a mistake. She didn't do it.
黙れ下級警察官。こちらには揺るぎない証拠。
It's okay, Finn. Let's follow their orders. I don't want you to lose your job because of me.
But
Finn, you said you trust me. You really meant that, didn't you?
yes, of course.
Then I can accept my fate. If there is someone who believes me, I can accept it.
But you're being charged with a crime you didn't commit. This isn't right.
I know, but I can't fight my way out of this. No matter what they say, I'm innocent. I'll never confess to killing my parents. I'll clear my name someday, and I want you to be there on that day.
わかりました。
I will be.
行くぞ。さっさと来い。
An officer stepped between us, making it impossible for me to take Finn's outstretched hand. The men marched me away from Finn, their expressions watchful and wary. I turned as we reached the chapel door.
キルス。
Cyrus.
Finn's expression was devastated as he looked at me.
指示があるまでここにいろ。騒ぐんじゃないぞ。
I know that. I murmured the words quietly to myself as I listened to the sound of receding footsteps. They'd forced me to change into different clothes and put me in one of the holding cells. I've put so many criminals in here. I know everything about this place. Even if I scream, nobody will be able to hear it. The holding cells were designed to contain criminals and suspects. Taking criminals to these cells was part of my job as a rank 1 police officer. I didn't know much about what happened to them afterwards. I never dreamed that I'd end up here myself. I left in disbelief at my misfortune. But I'm not dreaming. The cold walls, the sparse furnishings, the crime I was accused of. None of this was a dream. It'd be nice if it was. My vision became blurry and my eyelids itched. My throat and my nose hurt, but not as much as my heart. Whether I'd killed them or not would be discovered eventually. But either way, my parents were dead. That was never going to change. My parents were never coming back. I knew they would die one day, but I never thought they'd be gone so soon. I wondered if I had been a good daughter to them. All I'd ever done was worry them or give them extra work to do. I can't even ask them now. I told myself I had to be strong, but just look at me now. My tears refuse to be held back any longer. I just want to see them one more time. Just to say thank you. I kept thinking about what Finn had said. This isn't right. No, it wasn't right. My father, my mother, myself, none of us deserved this. What unknown enemy could deal out such cruelty? I didn't know. I didn't see the faintest ray of hope. Even so, I need to be strong and live. Even if I didn't know how much more I might be forced to endure, I was alive. My father and my mother were both dead, but Cyrus Testilla was alive. And as long as I was alive, I could find out what had really happened. I couldn't resurrect the dead, but I could avenge this atrocity. This chaos will not swallow me, ever. I will survive.